I love cooking and I love teaching people how to cook. I've been doing both for 30 years. To cook well, it helps if you love and value food, as that is where it all starts. My approach to cooking is simple and not new. Use the best ingredients you can, get organised and follow the recipe. That way, you'll be sure to get wonderful results. I love hake. When you see it on the fishmonger slab, it's not a thing of beauty, but what it lacks in looks, it more than makes up for in flavour, with sweet white flesh and a firm texture. It can be cooked in so many different ways, but grilling is one of the simplest and least fussy, making it an ideal method if you're serving it as a starter. So I've got a piece of lovely hake. This could be whiting, it could be haddock, it could be salmon. All can be cooked in this very, very simple way. I've got a frying pan on heating, just so that it's hot when I put the fish onto the pan. That way the fish won't stick on us. So what I like to do is to dip the fish in a little seasoned flour. That's what seasoned flour is. It's quite simply some flour that's got salt and pepper in. So I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of salt and a little twist of black pepper. Then just dip your piece of fish into the flour, like that, on both sides. And then I like to tap off the extra flour. The reason I use the seasoned flour is because I find it gives me a little bit more colour, a little bit more texture on the fish. You can absolutely cook fish exactly the way I'm doing it here and omit the flour altogether, if that suits you better. Now, I'm going to spread a little bit of butter onto the surface of the fish. So smear it on, so it's like you're buttering a little piece of bread, rather too meanly, really. Now this is important. Ensure that your pan is very hot. So don't just pop it in, just do that. And when you hear the sizzle, you know it's hot enough. If it doesn't sizzle, wait a couple of minutes and let the pan get hot enough. It will completely repay you those couple of minutes that you've just waited. So pop it on, flesh side down, and I want that to get golden brown. Now, when you're pan frying or grilling, you need to keep an eye on the heat so that the fish doesn't start to stew, because if it starts to stew, the juice will run out, and we want the juice in the fish, and also there's a chance it might stick on you. So we're getting a nice bit of smoke action here. If you're pan frying or grilling, there's going to be a little bit of smoke. There needs to be. Turn on the extractor, it'll take all that out of your kitchen. If you don't get smoke, you're not going to get colour. If you don't get colour, you're not going to get flavour. This is the sort of food that I eat mostly myself. Quick, easy, impeccable ingredients, an incredible freshness of taste, and full of goodness. Let's have a look and see if this is ready to turn. Oh, yes, it is. Look how golden that is. It's absolutely beautiful. Really lovely. And the way it's sort of shrinking up a little bit when I turn it over, that's a good indication of the freshness. It's also a good indication, by the way, that the pan is hot enough. Even though the fish was dipped in seasoned flour, it's worth adding a little bit of extra seasoning at this stage. Right, while that's finishing cooking, I'm going to make the little herb butter to go with this. So a little bit of butter melting in a pan. I'm using a rich combination of flavours here. The chervil and fennel will bring that wonderful anise taste which works so well with fish, and the parsley and thyme will add fragrant, earthy undertones. Add the herbs to the butter and stir until they are thoroughly coated. So I've got what really you'd call a herb relish. It's thick with herbs. That's really what I'm after here. And the butter is a beautiful liquid vehicle, if you like, for the herbs. And I'm not going to put that back on the heat now, because I don't want to cook the herbs. I want the raw flavour of the herbs. That's where the really eye-popping deliciousness will be in this simple sauce to go with a piece of simply but perfectly cooked fish. So let's see if the fish is cooked. What you want to do is just look in, and it should no longer look translucent. That's really pretty much perfect. I have a nice hot plate. I like to serve a piece of pan-fried or grilled fish on a nice hot plate. So, there we go. Lovely piece of simply cooked fish, absolutely a thing of beauty. So, a little of our herb relish. Simple wedge of lemon to go with us would help to cut through the richness of both the fish and the butter. Then I like to put a little bit of chervil, which is kind of whimsical looking, but actually delicious to eat with it. And on there like that. It's the sort of food that will sustain you and give you pleasure. There's just so much to recommend it. casserole roasting is an invaluable technique. The object is to cook the main ingredient, in our case chicken, in a tightly sealed casserole so as to achieve succulent flesh and at the same time trapping in all of the precious cooking juices. The juices become the basis for the sauce, or indeed can be the sauce. I'm going to use some Indian spices today. Another day it might be tarragon, watercress, wild garlic. They can be added to the bird at the beginning of the cooking or to the juices at the end. When you cook the bird on the bone, the skin still on, it produces a uniquely good flavour and texture. It's a wonderful technique. Sometimes I want a really hot, spicy chicken dish, and then other days I want a sort of a milder, more aromatic flavour where it's more about the spices particularly than the heat of the chilli. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with this chicken when we're going to cook it in our casserole roasting technique. So lovely free-range chicken, and I'm going to start off by smearing the chicken breast with a little bit of soft butter. So I've got my butter here at room temperature, and I'm going to take part of my butter, just smear on the butter onto the breast. So that's plenty. As in the previous recipe, it's vital to ensure your casserole is hot before you put the chicken in, otherwise it will stick. So gentle heat going along there nicely. While that's happening, I can make the spices, or get my spices ready. So the remainder of my butter, there. Then I've got my turmeric and a little bit of chili powder, and they're going to add not only colour, but flavour to the dish. Absolutely lovely. And then my spices, I've got ground coriander and ground cumin seeds, which I've toasted lightly in a pan, ground in a pestle and mortar or a coffee grinder, and they go in there, and you make a little spice paste. And already I can just smell this sweet sort of aromas coming up as I've introduced them into the butter. That's it. Now, let's look and see what's happening in here. Turn over the chicken. Yeah, there we are. That's lovely. I've got a lovely golden sort of coating on the surface of the chicken. That's exactly what I want. And now I can put on my spice mixture. So smear that on there. Doesn't look so beautiful at this stage, but don't worry. Okay, perfect, looking good. A sprinkle of salt, a grinding of pepper, a squeeze of lemon juice, and if you're feeling adventurous, a couple of whole green chilies. That's it, ready to go into the oven, but not before we put on our extra layer of insulation, bit of greaseproof paper parchment, and our tight-fitting lid, which, because it's such a nice heavy lid, fits down nice and snugly. Put that into a preheated oven set to moderate heat for approximately an hour and a half. This technique for cooking rice is fantastic. It's called pilaf, a pilaf rice. So butter just sizzling there. So put in your shallot. And I'm just going to soften it down very, very slightly. I don't want to sweat it completely. I just want to start the cooking process here with it. So turn it for a moment. And I'm going to add in my rice, just long-grain basmati rice. And all I'm looking for at this stage is that you'll see that the grains of rice just start to blanch slightly. In other words, they just get slightly whiter looking. But that seems to just lift the flavour of them slightly. Great. Now I'm ready to add in the stock. Just all goes in one go. A little bit of a sizzle, as you'd expect. Then turn the rice in the stock, and then, very importantly, a pinch of salt to flavour it. Now, we're going to bring that up to a simmer, and then when it comes to a simmer, keep it at a simmer and simmer it very gently for about 10 or 12 minutes until all of the liquid has been absorbed by the rice and it just looks beautiful and fluffy. And it is as simple as that. Curly kale is so easy to deal with. You just sort of break off the individual stalks like that, and then just pull the leaf off the stalk. Simple as that. And then I break it up for cooking into bits sort of about that size, sort of bite-sized pieces. If they're left too big, sometimes it can be a little bit awkward to eat. So I've got some water on boiling here, a good pinch of salt, and then we're going to pop in the kale. And that looks like a lot of kale at this stage, but it does sort of boil down. And very importantly then, I'm not going to put the lid back onto the saucepan because that would draw some of the lovely colour out of my kale. Give it a stir, and then don't be tempted to put the lid back on the saucepan.
Let that cook for about 8 minutes until the kale has been fully cooked through. Strain it immediately. This stops the cooking and ensures that it maintains its vibrant colour.
Drop that into my saucepan just to season it up.
Add a generous dash of extra virgin olive oil and finally a good squeeze of lemon juice to lend it a bit of zing. And that's it. The light glaze of oil ensures that it's not heavy while lending the kale a lustrous shine. Pop that into a preheated serving dish and keep it warm until serving. Coming up after the break, I'm going to show you how to make a fragrant coriander and cream sauce to serve with the chicken. We're going to follow that up with a kiwi granita served with lacy nut biscuits, a refreshing way to counterbalance the spicy chicken. It's time to check on our chicken, which has been roasting away in its own juices for an hour and a half.
Now, to make sure that chicken is cooked properly, the way to test it is to test between the leg and the breast, because that's the part of the chicken that takes longest to cook. And count 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're testing the temperature, okay? And then red hot on there. If you're scared about doing it on that delicate part of your arm there to test the temperature, do it between your 2 fingers like that. Still lovely and hot. No grey area with chicken, must be cooked through.
I'm going to pop that back in the oven on a low heat to keep warm while I make the sauce.
Now, what have I got in the saucepan? Remember, this chicken went into a dry casserole, okay? No liquid of any description. And look at the amount of liquid that we've gotten in here. I mean, that is absolutely fantastic. The chicken has given us that, nothing else. I could strain off the fat off the top of that by just skimming the surface of that with a spoon if I want to. Or else, what I like to use is my old favourite, the maigre. Looks like a little jug with 2 spouts. And this will help me to degrease the liquid. So, it settles here for a moment, and like oil on water, fat on liquid just rises to the surface. So we pour it through the end of the maigre that's got the little spout attached, and that holds up the fat which is on the surface of the liquid. So pour in there. You see where the colour of our liquid has been tinged by the turmeric to give us this sort of pale, almost lemon colour at this stage. And as soon as you see little bubbles of fat starting to dribble through, then you stop. Oh, there it is. Now, that's the juices. I'm going to take this sauce a little bit further by adding in a little bit of cream. So the saucepan with the chicken juices is going to go back on the heat. It could be just those juices brought to a simmer, a little bit of chopped coriander. That would be fantastic. I'm going to make it slightly richer today by the addition of cream. And then all I need to do now is to allow this to simmer and to thicken lightly. I'm not going to add in any flour or anything else to thicken it. I'm going to thicken it by what's called reduction. While that's happening, I can be carving my chicken.
I find the best way to get maximum value from your chicken when carving it is to serve both the brown and the white meat.
So, with the rice, you can serve it exactly just as it is. It's been sitting in the saucepan staying warm, but usually at this stage I like to add in a little bit of chopped fresh herb. So I have a little bit of chopped flat parsley. Fold that in nice and gently, and you see, it's amazing how well this rice keeps, the way it just sits so beautifully. So into a nice serving dish. You can see the way the rice is still lovely, steaming hot, and individual grains of rice. That's the joy. My kale, which has just been keeping warm, just give it a little stir up like that, just to refresh it. Perfect. That's still really lovely. See the way it hasn't gotten dry? It's still got a lovely little sort of glaze on it like that. Okay. How's the sauce doing, and what are we looking for? Just very, very lightly thickened. A little bit of chopped coriander, just to freshen up the appearance and to freshen up the taste. This looks absolutely lovely. So, let's pop our sauce on. Just sort of coat, nap like that. And see the last minute addition of the coriander just really, really freshens up the appearance. And the final little thing, a few little sprigs of fresh coriander, just as a little garnish. So this meal, full of great techniques, highly nutritious, and really fantastic to eat. Most people like ice cream or iced desserts. And whether it's to cool you down on a lovely hot summer's day or to serve proudly after dinner at any time of the year, without doubt it really is worth trying to make your own. A cooling dessert would be the appropriate thing to serve after our casserole roast chicken with those lovely Indian spices and the chilies. And because there was little cream in that sauce, I'm suggesting a dairy-free ice here. These little biscuits I'm going to serve with the granita are like little flat, sweet crisps, and they're full of little air holes, like something you expect to see in a lovely cafe or even in a restaurant, but really, really easy to make at home. The predominant flavour here is nuts, and you can use a mixture of different nuts. I've got some Brazil nuts, pecan nuts, and almonds. I find that the textures and the flavours are better if you use a sort of a varied mixture. And what I've done with them, you can chop them by hand if you want to. I actually put them into the food processor, and I've rendered them into a sort of a grit, I suppose you'd call it, like that.
Add the nuts to the butter. Then add some caster sugar, 2 teaspoons of water, and 1 teaspoon of apple pectin. The pectin gives the mixture a lovely elastic quality.
The final ingredient then is liquid glucose, and this will help to make the biscuits keep really, really well when they're cooked, so they'll keep for 24, even 36 hours. So at this point, it's a strange-looking composition of ingredients. What I want to do is I just want to dissolve the liquid glucose and make sure all of my ingredients are mixed together, and also just to break down the sugar. And we're just melting them until it's literally that consistency. That's it, as simple as that.
Using a teaspoon, dollop the mixture onto a baking tray lined with parchment paper. Allow a little space between them for the biscuits to expand.
You don't have to spread it out. It will find its own level. I've got space to a couple of tiny little ones, so why don't I pop a little one there? Again, this can be the cook's taste. Right, that's those ready to go into the oven. So I've preheated my oven to 180. When the biscuits come out of the oven, they'll be slightly molten, and in a matter of moments, they set to this really, really lovely air-filled crisp. As I say, it's like a sort of a sweet crisp. So that's those. So I can go ahead and make my granita. Now, granitas are really easy to make, so it's an ice, a slightly coarse ice. If I was making a sorbet, I'd be trying to get something super smooth, but this is supposed to be gritty and icy, really, really lovely. And I'm making it today with kiwi fruit. And watch out for the little woody piece just in there, that little guy. It's quite woody, so just get that out of the equation.
Peel the kiwi and roughly chop it. You don't have to be too precise because the next stage is blitzing.
What's very important is you don't overblend the mixture, because part of the beauty of a kiwi fruit visually are the beautiful jet black seeds. They're like the colour of Kilkenny marble. But if you break those up, they're really, really peppery, and I don't want the granita to be too peppery. So I'm just going to render it to a puree for sure, but I don't want to break up the little black seeds. Then simply add in my caster sugar, and then the perfect flavour accompaniment, a lime. So zest the lime using my microplane, and as soon as you start to zest the lime, the fantastic aroma that it gives out, it makes complete sense when it's in the same place as the kiwi fruit. You can understand straight away why those two ingredients are going to absolutely love each other. Lovely. That's all my zest. Then whenever I'm juicing citrus fruit, I like to press on them heavily like that a few times, and to render it sort of soft. See the way it's soft and squishy like a squash ball? It's much easier to get the juice out then, and I feel you get more juice out.
Squeeze in a generous dash of lime juice. Now gently pulse with a hand blender, but remember, don't overdo it, because if you break up these seeds, you'll end up with a bitter granita.
Okay, that's the consistency I'm after. So just sort of liquidy looking like that. No large bits except for one I just found there. There's almost always a rogue, and there it is. So, sorry, rogue. So that's it, another stir. Yeah, to get that lovely liquidy consistency. So in other words, no large bits of kiwi that are just going to freeze into icy bits of kiwi. So that's absolutely perfect. I'm very happy with that.
So now, to make it into a granita, you need to freeze it. Leave it in the freezer until the mixture is semi-frozen and slushy looking. Then take it out and beat it up with a fork.
So you bring the frozen granita back into the middle and just mix it all up. So you break up, you don't have any large, sort of really big lumps.
Repeat this freezing and mixing process 3 more times. When the granita is finally ready, you'll see that the mixture has crystallized and you're left with these lovely shards of kiwi.
This is so simple, absolutely so simple. Okay, we could have that on its own. I've often eaten it on its own, lovely, but I want to just take it another step further by serving a little sauce with it. So I've got some orange juice here, which I've just squeezed a moment ago. Oranges, by the way, come out of a round orange thing, not out of a box that you need to use a scissors to get at. So freshly squeezed like that.
Add some caster sugar for some extra sweetness.
And some passion fruit. So these are really, really perfect. That sort of dimple like that, love it, exactly right. But I just want the juice. So what I'm going to do is to just scoop out the seeds with a spoon, easy as pie. And that is really, really delicious, sweet tasting, flavor-filled juice. And it pairs brilliantly with the granita. So it's really lovely. Now, by the way, the other thing is you don't have to sieve out the seeds. Some people love the crunchy seeds, some people don't like them. So that's up to you, but I usually do sieve them out, particularly given that I've got little seeds in the kiwi fruit in the granita anyway. Then all I do is just pass that through a sieve. Keep at it like that. And the combination of orange juice and passion fruit is really, really good combination of flavors. Now, when you get to that stage and you think, I'm there, go a little bit further. Keep at it. And the more of the flesh that you get out at this stage, the more flavoursome it's going to be. Because the flesh that's closest to the seed is the most flavoursome.
Stir the juice until all of the sugar has been completely dissolved.
Now, we're ready to serve. So take some of the granita, put it in. This is so fresh tasting, really, really refreshing. Like that.
Now drizzle our delicious orange and passion fruit juice over the top.
So it will be absolutely lovely just like that, a little spoon on the side, or with our little lovely lacy nut biscuits. It's really fantastic with it.